I am Marques Cardenas' father. Marques was involved in a shooting in Sunnyside, Washington a couple of years ago. He received an 18-year sentence. A lot of people believe that he was some crazy gang member that just opened fire for no reason, but that's not the case. Today I'm here to set the record straight and let everybody know exactly who Marques is and the details of the case that were ignored by a lot of people. A little bit about Marques' upbringing. He's always had a father in his life. Marques was very creative. He was a hands-on guy. He played sports. While he was living here in Las Vegas with me, I had a pretty good program for him. He was involved with the music scene. He was doing videos. We even talked about the possibility of him acting. So he had a good, solid structure out here in Las Vegas. Where things went wrong for Marques is when his mother allowed him to come back to Washington State and go stay with a friend. So basically she took him out of a real functioning, productive environment and allowed him to go to an unproductive environment. And that's when the gang thing started to spiral out of control. So today, like I said, we're gonna go over the motion of discovery. We're gonna talk about a lot of things and facts. So some of you might not agree, but you can't argue with the truth, and that's what this is a packet full of the truth.
Shineentertainment, yeah!
It's your boy, I Am Camino. Welcome to the 6-Day Strip Show. Today we're interviewing the father, and the goal is to understand his perspective on the facts that he understands and why his son may be wrongfully convicted. Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening?
How would you describe your son before this incident?
I would have to say Marques was overall, he's a good kid. I'm not saying it just because I'm his parent, but he's a good kid. I've always been in his life. He's been in the sports. He definitely loves his family, and he's just an overall good kid.
What was his life like at the age of 19?
Age of 19, Marques unfortunately fell into gang activity. While he was living here in Las Vegas, he definitely had structure, and I do believe his downfall was when his mother allowed him to come back to Yakima. While he was here in Las Vegas, he had structure, discipline, and like any kid, they don't like that, but at the end of the day, it's always what's best for him. So I think his life really took a turn when he left Las Vegas to go back to Sunnyside.
So pertaining to his case, how you think his affiliation with the gangs played on the police and prosecutors that viewed him?
That's a good question. I think the fact that he was a gang member really played a heavy part in what happened in his court proceedings. Sunnyside, Yakima has a very bad gang problem. It's a tight community, so a lot of people are affected by gang activity. And I always would tell my son, you have to understand that no one in the justice system downtown, the county's office or the courts can do anything to gang members, only until the gang members come into their job, which is the court and prosecutors and attorneys. That's when they get a chance to really take a stand against gang members. So when he caught this case and he was a gang member, he was already doomed off the top.
So about the incident, what is your understanding of what happened in that day?
Well, From what I understand and what I've read in police reports that's documented by eyewitnesses, for what I understand, that day he had went to work, and obviously I think he went to a store, bumped into his mom, and then from there he went to a corner store or something like that, and somehow he had an altercation with these two guys. My son identified them as gang members. I think what people don't seem to understand is the fact that prior to this incident, Marques was locked up, and while he was locked up, someone did a drive-by shooting on his home. So before he came home, I told him, I said, listen, you might need to leave the area because not someone's looking for you. There's a group of guys looking for you, okay? And it's not just one. There's some guys looking for you. So when he come home, he go gets a job like we all expect a person to do, trying to do right, go get a job. So when he has this confrontation at the store, you guys have to understand where his mind is at. He's a gang member, and one thing about gang members, they get killed and people are always looking for them and they gotta look over their shoulder. So with this on his mind, that his mama's house has been shot up, and he has this altercation with these two guys that he recognizes as gang members, his mind is in gang activity mode. And so when he went to the store, he had altercation, he left, jumped in his vehicle. Obviously these two guys jumped in their vehicle. He took off. They pursued him for 5 blocks. I talked to him personally, and he told me that, he said, Dad, I had to slow down, I was gonna hurt somebody or something. And when he slowed down, these guys came on the other side of the road and pulled up beside him, and he opened fire on the vehicle.
Do you believe he feared for his life?
Oh, no doubt in my mind he feared for his life. And the reason why I say that is because if he's such this gang member, he would have killed both those guys at the store. He had a gun on him. And just to show you that he was fearful for his safety, he took the gun to work with him because he's riding around in this small community and whatnot. And he just might happen to go to a store and bump into some gang members. And that's exactly what it sounds like to happen, because no one goes to work for 8 hours and then get off work and then, just go gun somebody down,
What evidence do you believe supports the claim of self-defense?
Well, the fact that the surviving victim, he wasn't honest in his testimony about the situation that happened, and the only time you lie about something or is to cover something up. So obviously he had something to cover. If not, he just would have been honest about everything that happened. He gave a version of a story that did not match the actual police report. So it's not like I'm saying he's lying, Marques is saying he's lying. It's Sunnyside Police Department that says he's lying.
So you think those details have been overlooked or misunderstood?
Most definitely, definitely been overlooked because they never been discussed. Marques took a plea without ever seeing the video. Marques took a plea without ever seeing the actual police report that backs up what happened. He never seen the motion of discovery. A lot of his paperwork, if you look at his paperwork, you'll see where there's a part that says defendant is supposed to sign, and that's basically acknowledging that the attorney has went over all the information. And
you can expect a high of 104 degrees Fahrenheit and a low of 78 degrees. Also,
it never happened. It never happened. So he was given a plea bargain without all the evidence and information given.
What do you believe the 2 men in the other vehicle was doing wrong?
Well, according to the survivor, which is Moses' little brother, it sounded like they were having a good time. They definitely were under the influence of alcohol, based off what his brother stated, that his brother came down from Tri-Cities to have a few beers. So and then in the statement he claimed that they went back to the store to get more beer. Okay, so Moses and his little brother, they definitely were drinking, and no telling what else was they involved in that day, is because we never got a chance to go over the toxicology report. And as anyone knows that's familiar with law, you already know that anytime there's a crime such as this right here, and there's any kind of evidence of narcotics, alcohol, a toxicology report has to be done.
So is that some of your concerns about the police investigation?
Well, that's just one of my concerns, really. And to be honest with you, I think the police did a good job in investigating this thing here. I don't have no problem with what the police did. The problem is his attorney, Scott Burns, burying evidence, violating the Brady Constitution. The problem is the prosecutor, knowing that her star witness is lying and did not report it to the judge, which she is obligated to do by oath. So I want you guys to understand something about the prosecutor and Scott Burns, which is his public defender. When Marques caught this case, I'm familiar with how the court proceedings go, so I knew nothing was going to happen fast. So I chose not to get involved at all in the beginning. It was only 5 to 6 months later that I got myself involved, and that's when I called his attorney. Prior to that, the only person his attorney was talking to was his mother and his stepmother, Monique. So 6 months later, I come into the picture. Scott's thinking that Marques is just some kid out in Yakima, don't have no father or anything like that, but he was wrong. So when I stepped on the scene, I called him, and he was very friendly at first. I let him speak, I let him talk.
Is that his lawyer, or is his public defender?
This is his public defender. This is his public defender. So he has my son's life in his hands, so I was very respectful and very humble to him. I let him speak, and I asked him a few questions, and the few questions I asked him, it turned all bad. The first question I asked him was, had he took the time to go see Marques? And he got offended because it was 6 months, and he told me, no. And I said, okay. And then the second question I asked him, I said, do you have a copy of the motion of discovery? And when I asked him that, all hell broke loose. He's like, what do you mean, motion of discovery? How do you know what that means? And what do you think that is? And I said, well, listen, man, I'm not gonna go back and forth with you on that. I was like, do you have a copy or not? He said, yeah, I got a copy. And I said, well, can you please send me a copy? He said, no. I said, why not? He said, well, this is gang related, and I don't want no retaliation coming back on me. So I was very offended that he would assume that a parent would be involved in a gang retaliation, which I don't understand. My son's alive. I have no retaliation against anyone. So that is the beginning of things going downhill, is with his attorney refusing to talk to me.
So you do believe that your son did not receive effective legal counsel?
I know he didn't receive effective legal counsel. There was a video that came out right after the incident. I don't know who got their hands on it, but it was a door cam video, and it showed my son driving by, and then it showed another white car coming from behind, and you can hear the engine revving and everything, and right when they go off camera, you hear the gunshots, pop, 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 pop. So that alone was not in the motion of discovery. And the funny story about the video is my sister and my nephew had a copy of the video right when it was released, and they refused to give me a copy of it. To this day, I don't understand that. We family, and something like this so serious happened, and you have a video and you refuse to give it to me. And I still haven't heard a comment from them about that to this day, but that's another story. They gotta live with that on their conscience. But there's a lot of things that wasn't in the motion of discovery that should have been in the motion of discovery.
So did you feel your son was pressured to accept the plea agreement?
Do I feel he was what?
Pressured.
Yes, I do believe he was pressured. He was isolated. As I said earlier, his attorney cut off communication with me, and I never was disrespectful to him. It was just the fact that he knew that I was intelligent, and he knew that I knew the law, and that bothered him. So he also isolated my son because the last 2 weeks before he took his plea, my son almost cut communication off completely. And I knew that something was up because he was inspired to try to fight this case, but something was told to him that shook him. And I believe that they really railroaded him into taking that deal.
How did your son explain the decision to you for him to take the Alford plea?
Well, he said that he just wanted it to be over, and he told me that he didn't want to do 40 years in prison. So obviously somebody put that in his head that he would do maybe 40 years or plus. And I believe they put a real big fear tactic into him doing that, because as I said, he cut communications off, and you already know if you want to manipulate someone, that's what you're going to do, is isolate them, especially a young person like him at 19 years old. So it clearly was a direct, it played a major part. And not to mention, I want to mention too, in his motion of discovery, they also had kidnap, rape, and robbery in the motion of discovery, and I didn't understand why that was in there. And remember, an attorney and a prosecutor, they both go over the motion of discovery, and they have to sign off and agree on that. So the reason he didn't want me to get the motion of discovery, because he knew there was things in there that I was going to question him about. The video, the police report wasn't even in there. Then you had these false charges that are in there. So why is the police report not in here, but you got false charges on him? Now these false charges can be read to the jury. Once this is accepted by the judge and accepted by all parties, the prosecutor can go in there and actually open the file and say, yo, his current charges is kidnap, rape, how much of a chance you think he would have got if the jury would have heard that he's also being charged with murder and he's being charged with kidnap, rape. So they had already set him up. That's why the motion of discovery, he didn't want to give it to me, because he knew I was going to see these things.
Do you think he understood the long-term consequences of the plea?
I don't think any 19-year-old, 20-year-old understands what an 18-year sentence is. I think that's above their thinking ability, and I know there's no way a 19-year-old can understand the magnitude of that much time.
What was your reaction when you found out he received 18 years?
Well, I was very hurt. I was angry because I had spent so much time fighting for his defense, being the defense team, studying the law. I had the law in my favor. Everything that I said was correct. And for me to put that much time in there, and then for him to back out at the last minute, that hurt. But I also understand that, he didn't make that decision on his own. And like any parent that lose their child, you're gonna be upset and hurt. I called his mom. I was venting to his mom about it, about how upset I was about watching my son catch 18 years. And for some strange reason, she turned around and used that venting against me and put some bad shit into Marcus's ear, to the point where, now he's upset with me. And the thing is, I never said anything disrespectful to anybody, his mom or anything, but watching my son take them 18 years, I was hurt. I was pissed off.
Do you believe it was fair?
Do I believe it was fair? No, I don't believe none of that was fair. And I don't agree with his mother doing anything that could interfere with our relationship at this time, because like I said, I've always been in Marcus's life. I've never had a bad problem with her or anything, but for her to come in and to interrupt our relationship at the point where he needs me the most, that's really hard to deal with. And I don't understand why anyone would do that, or why she would do that, because he needs his dad right now for advice and guidance. But she has come in between that and destroyed that. But maybe one day he can think for himself, but right now he's a young kid still, like a pup under his mom, you know what I'm saying? So let's just hope he matures and come around.
What do you think prison has been like for him?
I can't, I don't know what prison is like for an individual like him. You know, he's, you know, heavy documented gang member. From what I understand, he's dropped out of gang. So, you know, he's probably on a PC yard, and that's something I've never experienced. And I don't know how those guys operate and live like that under those policies.
What is the strongest reason you believe your son acted in self-defense?
Well, like I said, no one goes to work to get off work to kill someone, you know, and I do believe that if people take the time to not think how a person thinks, and you have to think of how a gang member thinks, I think you will really see that it really was a self-defense. No one wants to lose anyone. My heart goes out to the family, and, you know, it's a shame that what happened, but in the reality, the actions that took place prior to the shooting gave Marques every reason to fear for his life. Keep in mind, you know, they've got 2 drive-bys on his house, okay? 2 drive-bys on his house. He's confronted with 2 guys. They run to their car. He don't know what they're going to get a gun. And as I said before, if Marques wanted to kill those guys, he could have killed both of them at the store, but he chose to get in his car and take off. He didn't have to take off. He had a gun, but he took off. But one thing I will say for sure, if those guys would have never pursued him, he would be alive today. And that's a fact, and that's nobody's opinion. And if they wasn't gang members, why did you respond to a gang sign? Why did you respond to a gang member? You know what I'm saying? If any of y'all watching are not gang members, parents, whatever, whoever you is watching, if you're not a gang member, why would you respond to gang activity? Only gang members respond to gang activities. And remember, those 2 guys had been drinking. They were feeling good. They went back to the store to get more. And they had a confrontation with one person, 2 guys. It got heated. One person ran. These 2 guys chased them. That's just the truth.
If you could tell the judge, prosecutor, or the public one thing, what would it be?
I can't really say too much about the judge because the judge only operates off of what's presented to him. I will say something about the court system and the prosecutor and the public defender. They're definitely crooked. They conspired to undermine the Washington State justice system, which they did. They manipulated the justice system. They both should be barred. They both are in violation of their oath. They're both clearly guilty of the Brady violation. And one day, maybe when Marques matures, he might want to try to open this case back up and defend himself when he has a lot of more heart. But at this time, you know, they scared him and boxed him in a corner.
So what outcome are you hoping for?
I'm hoping that this documentary kind of sheds a little light on what's happening in the courtrooms throughout Washington State. And it's just not Yakima, it's Pierce County, King County. It's happening everywhere. It's just unfortunate that people that don't have money don't get the same justice as people that do get money, that do have money. And I'm just, like I said, this is me. I'm not trying to drop this documentary to get them free or anything like that. This is just bringing awareness and bringing the truth to the family that seems to believe that Marques is just some crazy gang member killer. And I'm here to let you know he's not. He really felt he was scared. I talked to my son and I asked him, I said, son, were they gang members? He said, yes, Dad, they was gang members.
Is there any appeals or post-convictions, motions, or efforts underway?
I'm ready for that whenever my son's ready for that. You know, it's going to take him to bring that to the table. Like I said, I did my job, and before he took his plea, he didn't have to take the plea. If he just would have listened to me and followed my guidance, you know, we wouldn't be having this documentary right now.
What do you hope people take away from you and your son's story?
I just hope people take away that you can't always depend on a public defender to help in certain situations. I'm encouraging people to use technology that we have, AI. Study the law. Be your family or be your whoever is behind bars facing charges. Be their best support system. Do your research and help them out. Be a good defense team.
He did the crime and afraid of the time. Looked at the judge and started crying. Said the guns and the drugs is mine. And I'm like, no trial for a rat, it's a rap. It's a rap, it's a rap. I blow trial for a rat, it's a rap. It's a rap, it's a rap.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this part of the documentary, we're going to go over some paperwork. Like I said before, I'm not here to disrespect anyone. I'm just here to set the record straight and get the facts out about this incident. So this is a press release right here, one of the documents I'll be reading off of, and this is all from the courts in the county. So 5/27/2024, 21-year-old man was shot and killed in the 900 block, South 13th Street, when the suspect, Marques Cardenas, 20 years old, of Outlook, pulled in front of the vehicle, cutting him off, shooting him. Reports state that Cardenas was throwing gang signs at the victim just prior to the incident. Cardenas fled the scene and crashed his car, then fled on foot, was able to avoid capture at the time. Quickly after the shooting, the Sunnyside Police Department had identified Cardenas as the suspect and began looking for him. Sunnyside Police Department, with the help of the public, were able to apprehend Cardenas after a short foot pursuit. Okay, so this is the initial report that happened when things initially unfolded. So now we're going to go to this document right here. Excuse me, hold on, not that one. We're going to go to this one. This document right here says narrative. This is not my words. So when I read this, understand that I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth. This is Raymond's testimony, the survivor. Bear with me because it's kind of choppy and it's blurry. This writing is a little blurry, but here we go. Raymond stated, following the reference to the shooting, Raymond stated his brother, Moses, came down from Tri-Cities to visit him and have a few beers. Raymond stated Moses picked up the beers from the market on 13th Street. Raymond stated while they were heading back to their grandmother's residence in Sunnyside, they noticed a GMC waiting at the stop sign near East Jackson Ave. Raymond stated Moses had decided not to go back to his grandmother's house because the male driver of the GMC was making gang signs with his hand. Raymond stated they continued to drive around. Once back on 13th Street, Raymond asked his brother, Moses, if that was the same vehicle which they seen on Jackson. Raymond stated, hold on, he stopped on East Jackson. Raymond had been driving around the block, pointing at the GMC, stated, stopped on East Jackson, excuse me on that one. Raymond stated he saw the male had one hand on the steering wheel as they passed by him and had the gun pointed at them. Raymond stated all he saw was a black barrel. Raymond stated the GMC Yukon drove around the rear side of their silver Grand Am. Raymond stated he instantly ducked around and was shielded by his brother, Moses, then felt the car shift side to side until the car collided with a vehicle near East Irvin. Raymond stated he just saw his brother, Moses, was lifeless, so he jumped out the passenger window and began crying for help. Raymond stated there was only no one else in the suspect vehicle. Okay, so right here, and excuse me for chopping it up, but right here, you know, Raymond and his brother, they're drinking. That's off the top. They went back to go get more beer. This story right here is what the survivor said. Now, I'm going to read you what the police said. Once again, no one's calling Raymond a liar, but the police department don't agree with him. So here we go right here. On the back it says, Sunnyside police reveal events leading up to deadly shooting. This is an update. This is what the update says. Sunnyside police released an update to the events that led up to the shooting that killed the 21-year-old man. According to officials, after investigating videos and interview witnesses, the shooter Marques Cardenas, 20, had hit the victim's car and proceeded to throw gang signs at the victim. Officials said Cardenas did not pull over after hitting the victim's car, and the victim had followed Cardenas for 5 blocks. When the victim tried to pull up alongside Cardenas' vehicle, Cardenas began shooting at the victim. Police said the evidence at the scene showed that there was only one shooter and the victim had not returned gunfire. So, something's not right here. And I'm not saying he's lying. Police department said he's lying. This is Raymond's statement, and as you notice, he didn't mention anything about chasing this man for 5 blocks. So, we're going to talk about that. But let's get into something a little bit more even interesting. His public defender was more of a prosecutor than anything. This right here came out of his motion of discovery right here. Like I said, I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm just going to put it up. Check it out. Right here, pre-child services, charges. His charge right here, charges. It says murder to attempt, possession of a firearm. And what do you know? At the bottom, it says other factors. Watch this. Other factors. Current charges include murder 1 or assault 2, kidnap, rape, robbery. Defendant is a known documented gang member. That's what it says in his motion of discovery. That's deep. He's never been charged with any of that. But see, once again, I told you I came into the picture 6 months later. This had already been put together. They were prepared to slam him. Now, one thing about Raymond's statement, once the prosecutor realizes that this statement is false, they're not allowed to use this in any more court proceedings. So she backed out. Everything in this motion of discovery is his public defender. She backed out. She had to, by oath. She had no choice. Once she found out this was a lie and then got this update police report, she had no case no more. He's been charged with 2nd-degree murder. They played on him. They cut him off from his people, his biggest support, and it's not the courts, it's his family, and they played him. Right here, Raymond clearly states that they were drinking. There's no toxicology report. We don't even know what else they were using that day, but we do know that they were drinking and under the influence of alcohol. So that's this documentary in a nutshell. And like I said, I just wanted to share documents and paperwork and read narratives and people's stories about what happened. And the plea that he was given, that was not a good plea because the state did not have the evidence that required them or would allow him to accept that plea. The judge never went over the evidence that the state presented. And as you see, throughout this whole documentary, there's no evidence of 2nd-degree murder, but there is evidence of self-defense. As I said before, and as even Raymond stated, if he wanted to kill them, he would have killed them at the stop sign, as he said. He would have driven by and shot them, as he said, but he didn't have no intentions of killing nobody. No one gets off of work and just goes and kills somebody. But if your life is threatened, your mother's house been shot up, that's where your mind is at when you see 2 guys and you identify them as gang members and you take off running. Only people run when they're scared. They chased him 5 blocks, pulled up on the side of him. They had intentions. Okay, so I think a lot of people have missed something that's very huge in this case. The reason why I believe the public defender did not push for a self-defense for Marques is I want you guys to understand something. They had a choice to make. It was either allow this gang member that has a history to go free, or either have a mother lose her child and the other child go to prison for accessory. You see what I'm saying? So when Raymond, which was the driver, chose to chase this man 5 blocks, he was committing a crime. When he pulled up on the side of Marques, he definitely committed a crime. And the law states if someone dies in the mix of you committing a crime, you're responsible for that death. So this is pretty deep. And I do believe that's the reason why they railroaded Marques so strong, is because they had compassion for this mother that just lost her son, and they didn't want her to lose another son to prison. And those are some of the facts that they had to deal with. And that's what I honest to God believe. The video explains everything. And again, that's why I said I'm not here to call nobody a liar, discredit nobody. I'm here to give you the truth. You guys can watch the video yourself and you can see the Pontiac pulling up behind Marques, revving the engine. You all can see it. You probably might hear the gunshots go off. It is what it is. I want to thank y'all for joining us and being a part of this documentary. We got a lot more documentaries coming, a lot of cases. In fact, if you got a case that you feel is not right, get in touch with us and we can maybe go over your case and dissect that documentary, the motion of discovery, and see what we can do for you. Peace.
Shineentertainment. Yeah.